Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon here in California. Good evening to those at the East Coast of the United States of America. This is our sixth session of the Conference of the Luso American Education Foundation. The conference began 45 years ago, so it's been around for a while as a product actually of bilingual education. At that time, there were still quite a few young immigrant students coming to California. A few of them had just come, and there were quite a few teachers throughout the state of California of Portuguese background who were either bilingual teachers or aides in the bilingual aid program. And so there was the need to have a conference to congregate all of the different teachers throughout the state, this huge state of California, and to bring forth some ideas. And from bilingual education, the conference continued into a different realm, and it has been in existence for the last 45 years, for the last 2 years virtual, but that kind of opens some opportunities as well. We don't know if it is going to go back fully to being an in-person only a conference. That's something that everyone in all the different organizations are kind of dealing with, as all of you know. I'm very, very excited about this because this is my home turf. And so having been a high school teacher for 22 years and now at college level as well, I retired to work. So I'm very, very happy with this session called Building Bridges Through Portuguese Language Classes / Programs in North America. And we have a total of 5 invitees. One of them is going to be a bit late because of professional reasons, but she will join us probably in about another 5 to 10 minutes. So I want to welcome all of you, and I want to welcome those of you following us here in the webinar and those of you following us on social media. Thanks already for the nice likes that folks are putting on through the social media outlets as well. I'm going to ask each and every one of our panelists to be so kind as to introduce himself or herself and tell us in a little bit of a nutshell, 5 to 6 minutes or whatever. I know it's hard to do it in about 5 minutes, but if you can, a brief bio about yourself and then about your program and the school that you teach at. If you don't mind doing that, that'll serve as the basis for the discussion. We'll try to keep this to about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, especially because Michelle has to go practice her voice. But I've already told her she has a beautiful voice. She doesn't have to practice. And Portuguese practice in a choir, if it's like the Philharmonicas I used to belong to, they always start late. But my students actually would tell me when I was teaching, why are we starting on time? Everything Portuguese starts late. But we're very excited to have all of you on board, and those of you here following us, of course, can ask any questions through the chat, and those of you on social media, you can ask questions as well. It's kind of hard for me to monitor both, but I'll try to do that. So we'll start with Shelley, Dr. Shelley Souza. If you take a couple of minutes, a few minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the wonderful program at your high school.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shelley Souza. I currently am the department head at BMC Durfee High School in Fall River, Massachusetts. We are a pretty big urban school, 2,300 or so students. We have 3 different languages offered, and now 4 this year. We have Portuguese, Spanish, French, and now Arabic. 15% of our population of the school takes Portuguese, so we have about 365 students enrolled in our Portuguese classes. That's about it, about our school.
Indeed, it's a wonderful program that you have there. How many levels do you teach there, Portuguese, Shelley? What is the basic?
We have 5 different levels. So we started at the entry level, Portuguese 1. We have honors and also college prep. Portuguese 2, college prep and honors. Portuguese 3 honors, 4 honors, and then we have advanced Portuguese, which is equivalent to our AP, but there is no AP for Portuguese, so we just have an advanced level.
Okay. Wonderful. Congratulations on such a successful program there at your high school. And to California, Luis. You're on mute. I know it happens to me every single time.
I am a product of the bilingual education come from the East Coast, New Bedford, Massachusetts. We were Shelley's rivals at New Bedford High School. I did sub at Durfee quite a few times while I was in college. Liked it a lot. It's an awesome school. So I teach at San Jose High School. We are, I believe, the only high school in the Bay Area that has Portuguese. I do all 4 levels. So from freshman year to senior year. Here we do Portuguese 1, 2. So the first year of Portuguese, first semester is Portuguese 1, second semester is Portuguese 2. Then the second year, it's Portuguese 3 and Portuguese 4, all the way to the advanced Portuguese. We are an international baccalaureate school, so we do offer an IB program, International Baccalaureate Program, International Baccalaureate, International High School Diploma. And with the languages, if the student takes the IB test and passes, and they also have to pass their English test, they get the cool seal of biliteracy when they graduate that proves that they are proficient in 2 languages. I came out here 12 years ago to teach at San Jose High School. Previously, I was in the East Coast teaching at in Rhode Island, actually, when I stopped teaching in New Bedford. Yeah, that's us.
Wonderful. And a wonderful program, a program with a very rich history in Northern California. And as Luis said, the only program, unfortunately, a successful one, but the only program of Portuguese language at a California high school in the Bay Area of San Francisco. And Michelle.
Hi. So I teach at Hillmar High School in Hillmar, California. I teach Portuguese 1, 2, 3, and then Portuguese speakers 1. Currently, we are thinking about a change in the near future because we have a Portuguese immersion program that has begun at the elementary school. They're in 5th grade now, and coming up the pipeline, coming to me. So in the near future, there may be advanced Portuguese classes here. And then a little bit about myself. I have spent most of my life in Hillmar. My parents immigrated from the Azores, I think 35 years ago already. I was born here, but raised very much Portuguese. So I'm happy to share that with my students and keep spreading the language and the culture.
Indeed, Hillmar is the only district in California that has a full immersion program at the elementary level, unfortunately. I mean, fortunate for Hillmar because it is a leader, but unfortunately it is the only one of its kind in California. And Hillmar is a small town, as some of you might know, but it is the most Portuguese town in America. Because it's about 39%. Last time we figured 39% Portuguese. So that's a very, very large percentage. I think Hillmar has about, Michelle, help me if I'm wrong, but I think what is the population around 9,000, something like that. Yeah. Okay. And so it's a small town, but with that uniqueness of being the biggest Portuguese population in the United States. And Dr. Leslie Ribeiro Vicente, who will talk about that awesome, unique program that she has in New Bedford.
Thank you, Denise. So my name is Leslie Vicente. I'm the Executive Director of Discovery Language Academy, and that's downtown New Bedford. Currently we teach age preschool. So our youngest students are 4 years old. So we teach preschool all the way up to grade 9. We have adult conversational Portuguese for adults. For the first time this year, we have advanced. We always had beginners and then intermediate, and we have advanced this year. And actually our advanced students, our students have been in the school for 2 years. And my adults, I mean, they're in their 40s, 50s, We even have someone that's 77. We have Spanish for adults. Some of them are already bilingual in Portuguese and English, but they are interested in taking a third language due to professional reasons. We have ESL. We have a program now for our Portuguese community, immigrant community. They don't have to be Portuguese. That's probably our biggest class right now. So we have ESL class, and we also have an English literacy class for English language learners, which is the young students, the children of our ESL students, because what we found out is that a lot of ESL students would drop out because either they had to work late or they didn't have babysitting. They didn't have anyone to watch the kids. So we created a program where it's a family program. We educate the parents and the children at the same time. We're also a annual test center. So students come and take their, I guess, the AP test at the school. A little bit about me. I think you guys already know I was born in California. I was born in San Diego, but I was raised in Pico Island in the Azores. During the winter and the summers, I used to go to my grandmother's in Graciosa, and somehow I ended up back in Massachusetts. Not by choice. I think it was my parents' choice when I was 12. And here I am. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. And so wonderful. As I said, we have, for those of you following us, we have one more teacher, Belina Feijó, who should be joining us momentarily, and we'll have her do her intros as soon as we have her join us. A little bit, so it's nice to know all the different programs, and of course, and that unique program, and the Discovery Language Center that Leslie directs there. And it's because it's so unique, different than what we used to know as a traditional community school. As a matter of fact, I believe Michelle was involved for many years in the Portuguese community school Jorge de Sena in Turlock. And so Leslie has taken a community school and gave it a 2.0 version of it. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Shelley, if we talk, we'll start with you again, if we don't mind. When you talk about your language program, the Portuguese language program, and as you said now with another language, Arabic, well, congrats. That's always exciting in the language department when you can have more than one or two languages. I was chair of my department for 20 years, and it was a fight to try to get a third language. And finally, the year I left, it was when I was able to get Latin into the curriculum. But for all those years, we just had Portuguese and Spanish, which here in California makes a lot of sense, of course, Spanish. But we used to have French, and we used to have also German. But both of those languages, unfortunately, died because there weren't enough interest from the students, and there wasn't a teacher. The teacher retired, and we couldn't find another teacher. And so, at your high school, Durfee, which has one of the largest Portuguese programs, and the different levels, what are some of the challenges that you feel as the community becomes a little bit more Americanized? I mean, I know that there's still immigration to that area from a few years ago, not like us, where it ceased about 40 some years ago, but there's still a little bit up until about 20 years, and once in a while you'll get maybe one or two families from Portugal. But what are some of the challenges that the Portuguese program faces, and if there are any, and how do you overcome those? How do you get more and more students to get involved in your program? And do you also have in your program, with such a large Portuguese American community, do you have students taking Portuguese that are not of Portuguese background?
So one of the challenges we face is we're currently a graduation requirement for the high school. So students cannot graduate high school without having 2 years of a language. So whether it's Portuguese or another language, they must graduate with 2 years. So we often face the challenge of students just taking the 2 years, and then once they get to level 3, they no longer want to join the classes. So actually this year we are no longer running advanced Portuguese because we didn't have enough students to fulfill a class. We had about 5 or 6 students interested, and our minimum we can run a class is with 10 students. So we're choosing not to run it with such a low number. So we try and overcome that challenge by getting students involved that aren't from Portuguese descent, that have no Portuguese background. And we have a Portuguese club. We do have some students involved in that. So that's up and running already this year. They had their first meeting today. So we just try and get them involved and try and reach out to their interests. We have many students who have a Portuguese background, but they say they have their Fall River Portuguese. So we try and teach them the proper Portuguese, proper ways to say things that they wouldn't normally say at home. We encourage them to speak with their families in Portuguese and try and educate their families as well, because as immigrants, they adapt to the American language and they have Americanized their Portuguese. So we try and bring back the Portuguese roots in our classroom, and it seems successful for a majority of students. We do get some pushback like, oh, that's not how my vovó says it, but it goes well, and teachers have been encouraging their students to continue on to the upper level. So next year we anticipate in running advanced Portuguese. We have a pretty good number in Portuguese 4 right now, so hopefully we will be able to run it.
So how many Portuguese teachers do you have on staff there?
We have 4.
Four Portuguese teachers. Fantastic. That's been pretty much about the same throughout these years. A good number of Portuguese
we started
teachers.
with about 6 a few years ago, and then 2 of them went on to other things. So now we're at 4.
And so is there interest also? Do you see any growth? I know you mentioned a little bit, but do you see any growth, especially in the future, as you look at it, with students who are not of Portuguese background, who are maybe Hispanic or other ethnicities? And the reason I'm asking is in California, this is a trend here, and I'm sure Louise will talk about that as well as Michelle. Do you see a trend in some students who aren't of Portuguese background being more interested in the language more than they were maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago?
Yes, definitely. We actually, I know Luis had mentioned the Seal of Biliteracy. We actually ran that for the first time last year, and some of our best students were not of Portuguese descent, and they had no Portuguese background at all. Everything they knew was what they learned in school, and they did qualify for the Seal of Biliteracy. So it was great to see such involvement from other ethnicities other than Portuguese.
Thank you, Shelley. And before we continue with the same question to everyone, I'm going to go back to Bellina's just joined us. And so the first question, which everyone's already answered, Bellina, and if you take about a few minutes as well, 3 to 5 minutes, and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the program that you have at the school that you teach at Tulare Union, please. You're on mute. Yeah, it happens all the time. I know. My students tell me.
I'm Bellina Feijó, as Denise said, and I'm a Portuguese immigrant. I immigrated in 1974. I was 5 years old. So I do have all of the schooling from the United States. And at 38, I decided I was going to be a teacher. So I went back to school. This Portuguese project fell in my lap, and I took all the tests and decided to become a Portuguese teacher. It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I had to learn how to teach a language, learning to teach elementary school, learning to teach math is completely different than having to learn how to teach language. And so I was completely dumbfounded when I started, but it is such a joy, and I truly love what I do. Although, as many of you know, we get frustrated with things, but it's the best job in the world. I get to talk about what I love all day long. I get to speak Portuguese, and I get to earn lots of money doing it. So for me, it's been a wonderful experience. I've had great colleagues, great teachers, great mentors, and being that immigrant, being having those two cultures, being caught between two cultures, I've relearned so much more about my own culture. Not only have I been teaching my students, but I've been realizing all of the things that we used to do that we get to enjoy now. All of the things that we can share with the young people that we're teaching, if that makes sense.
Sure does. Okay, so thank you, Belina. Now we'll continue with the question that I asked Shelley. We'll continue with everyone. Thank you, Shelley, and thanks everyone for allowing for Belina to make the introduction. So, Louise, we'll turn to you. What are some of the challenges, some of the changes that you have seen in the last? I don't think you've been in San Jose. What now? About 12 years. And so what are some of the things that have changed, if any, in the last 12 years, and some of the challenges that you see with the Portuguese language program and the international baccalaureate at San Jose?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is really being able to, or getting more teachers here. I think we could probably have another Portuguese class, but we need more teachers. But for me, right now we have 120 Portuguese students, which is pretty average. The first and second year classes are full. Third year class is full. Then the second year class is full. Third year class is kind of in the middle. And then the advanced class, I've had the most people in the advanced classes I've had in the last 4 years or so. I believe about 26 students, which is great. The draw is tough. We used to have, San Jose used to offer Portuguese at our local middle school or feeder school, but that teacher is gone. And so there hasn't been a teacher there for a long time. But the principal there is pro-Portuguese. She's always enjoyed our Portuguese classes at the high school. So she motivates kids, to try something new, try a new language. And a lot of them do, and it's great. We do have the Portuguese Club as well. We do a Portuguese Club dinner at the end of the year. We had some school club activities throughout the year, try to get some students involved. Our population, the demographic is 85% Latinos. That mirrors what I have in my classes. And then some Vietnamese, Chinese, and American kids.
So you have very few Portuguese Americans anymore.
Very few Luso descendants, yes.
What would you say, less than 10% maybe, or around there?
I have 10.
10%, wow.
No, I have 10 students.
Oh, 10 students, sorry, so it's less than 10%, yes. But that's wonderful that you have 120 some odd students and only 10 Portuguese and the rest of them so interested in Portuguese from other ethnicities.
Yeah, and I love it, and they love it. And of course, for a lot of our Latinos, some of them speak Spanish, and they can see the similarities, and it might be a little easier for them to pick up the new language. And of course, everybody likes Cristiano Ronaldo, so he's a big sell, and that's it. I mean, it's always a struggle, but we can always manage something. We always manage it. And even to the Portuguese Club, there are kids that come to the Portuguese Club who are not even taking Portuguese, but they still come to the club, which I find interesting. So that's pretty cool. Hey, just on a little different note,
sure.
Earlier on, I should have said that we do also have in San Jose an adult Portuguese class. It's a night class. It's at the Poço Community Center, Portuguese Community Center. It's a Portuguese Organization for Social Justice, and they do offer a Portuguese class for adults and children as well. They do have I teach the adult class. I don't teach the kids class, but they do have a children's class as well. And it's great because there are people from the community who are interested and either coming to learn how to speak a little better or write a little better, or just, people who are just interested, people who are going to Portugal, they want to know some conversational stuff. And it's good to see that they're, we're out there. Portugal's really little, but man, we're really big.
I actually think that Pat Cristiano Ronaldo, that the Portuguese government should contract him and have him come to America and promote Portuguese language at the different schools. I mean, that was always my thought, even when he wasn't as famous as he is today. And maybe, soccer players don't last forever, although he seems to be one that's going to last for a very long time. But maybe when he does retire, or semi-retire, let's say, in another 5 or 6 years, I think that they should do that. I was actually proposed that to Carlos Cesar, who was president of the government of the Azores, when Paulita, those of you who remember who he was, when Paulita was the famous Azorian play in the soccer team, that he should have contract him and have him go to every single community and promote the Azores, because they are a draw, as you said.
Sure.
Yeah, indeed.
I don't follow soccer, but when there's something on rtp.pt about Ronaldo, I'm like, oh, we're playing that news article, because everybody's going to be like focused,
Sure.
So
That's right. That's right. Indeed. And so quite interesting that you have such a successful program, and only with 10 Portuguese Americans. I mean, only 10 students who have Portuguese background. Michelle, that's probably not the case in Hilmar, where everybody is Portuguese and their uncle. So tell us a little bit about you mentioned a little bit in the outset that you have the immersion program. So there's going to have to be some changes in the high school program. Obviously, when those kids get there, with 6 or 7 years of a language, or even 8 years of a language, they're going to be ready for something else other than Portuguese 1, 2, or 3. So tell us a little bit about some challenge that you may have there, and a little bit about your students. Are they mostly Portuguese, or are there also some other ethnicities that take interest in the language?
So a majority of my students, I would say about 85 to 90%, or a little bit more, are Portuguese or have one parent that's Portuguese. They have avós, avós. They all of them know at least avó and avô, and little things, words and things like that. In my Portuguese 1 class this year, we tried to, especially because more than 38 students signed up, but I started the year with 38 students in my class, and we had to bump some of them into speakers so that I wouldn't have as many students. Now I have 33, which is still large.
Mm-hmm.
But we bumped some of them into the speakers class. Even then, I've been seeing that there's some of them that could have been in speakers because they have quite a bit of the language. They just needed to build on that. So it's an interesting dynamic for sure, because I have some that are like, I don't know what's going on. And then there's others that understand completely everything. So figuring out how to scaffold and that kind of, that's been a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Then the students who aren't of Portuguese descent, I have a lot of Hispanic ones that'll come in, and they'll take the class, but they thrive in this class also because of the connection that they make with Spanish and Portuguese. And then I guess one of the challenges that we do have here also is Spanish. There is here we have 2 Spanish teachers, and one teacher focuses all on the speaking classes, Spanish speakers classes. And then the other teacher focuses on all the introductory level Spanish classes. Here it's just me, and it's hard to find other Portuguese teachers. So it's either I teach a bunch of different sections of Portuguese, or we hire another teacher, or, different. It'll be interesting to see what the future holds for the program.
Sure. And especially because of the immersion students,
Yes.
which will be coming in. And when you say you have the native or near native speaker class, so these are students who speak the language at home, and they're pretty much like a Spanish speaker class. So in other words, it is a whole different ballgame, of course.
Yes.
And there's been growth in that class as
Mhm.
well. Interesting.
There
Yeah.
has been.
Interesting. Very interesting. And a little bit, if you don't mind, I know that you were involved also, Michelle, with the Georges Sena Community School. I don't know if you're still involved, probably not as many classes. You still are. The community school still exists, and still, of course, the COVID, but they're going back, and it's still one of the largest community schools in California. So does that continue to have a lot of growth as well?
So I am still the director of the school.
Oh, good for
Um,
you.
yeah, Carlos Rocha wouldn't let me go. And then, so this year we have cut back a little bit. It took a while to get approvals for us to go through with it. And so once we did, so far it's much less than usual that are
Okay.
signed up. It's K through 6th grade. We have 33 students that are signed up. We're going to cut back to either 2 or 3 teachers, depending on the exact size of the school. And then next year, we're hoping that we'll be able to go back to full. We also had last year, for the past couple of years, we've had adult classes. And we hope to bring that back as well. Yeah, hopefully with less restrictions.
And the Georges Sena Community School meets how many times a week? Once a week, is it?
Once a week, Mondays for 2 hours.
For 2 hours.
And then usually 28 sessions. This year will be 24 sessions.
Okay, good. Thank you for the info. So talk about the transition from community school to a different learning environment in the community school, which is what Discovery does. So Leslie, tell us a little bit about the program. And you mentioned already a little bit about the program, but tell us a little bit about maybe some challenges, and at the same time, opportunities. Obviously, we can always turn a challenge, as you have done quite well, by turning challenges into opportunities. But what are some of the challenges that an organization such as yours, that started as a very traditional community school and now is a powerhouse in the community school world, what are some of the challenges that you are faced with?
Well, we do have challenges, like any other organization. We do. I think our biggest challenge, and I think I've discussed that with you, Denise, is what I call the gap. And by that, I mean, we have a preschool that's full. We have a waiting list all the way up to, 2nd grade. We have a lot of students in 3rd, 4th, even 5th. But as soon as you get to that 6th grade level, 7th, 8th, which is the junior high school, we start to see a drop in students. And it doesn't mean that they're taking that Portuguese in middle school and junior high school, because I would be perfectly okay with that, because learning Portuguese, it doesn't matter where it is. But there's a loss of interest. Kids get involved in sports a lot. They get involved in a lot of things. They lose interest, but then they'll pick up the Portuguese once they get to Shelley and once they get to Louisiana, once they get to the high school. But they pick it up just because they knew it once upon a time, and it's going to be an easy class to take, and then that's it. And then maybe they'll take it when they go to college. So I feel that there's that gap there that I don't know how to fix it, because I'm not in the public schools. I try to do as much as I can so I can keep them at our school. But it's tough, because a lot of parents too, like middle schools here, we don't have a dual program. So we have some Portuguese in the Dartmouth public schools, but we don't have it in New Bedford public schools until they get to high school. And I'm downtown New Bedford, so a lot of our kids, once they leave, I would say probably around, we start seeing a decrease in attendance probably around grade 6. Once they leave, they don't have Portuguese. That's the biggest challenge that I have. But I think what's really, really important, and what I do to keep them, or any of them, and it's really important to do with our students, and especially where I'm at. And I think it's really important to celebrate accomplishments. These kids need to be validated. They need to be celebrated. whatever, things that they do. They need to get involved in community service. They can't come to our school, well, to my school, just to learn Portuguese. There has to be the culture, there has to be community involvement, because it's from there that they become, I don't say Portuguese citizens, but yes, they become, the Portuguese is like in us, it's in our hearts. That's why we fight for this all the time, because it's there. We don't know why it's there, how we got there, maybe if we were born with it, but this passion that we have for our language and our culture, I think that our kids get that, some of them, and you have to really, you have to celebrate accomplishments, and you have to build a community school. You can't just say, oh, it's the Portuguese school. Because my school once upon a time was the Portuguese school, and they didn't have that many students anymore. It has to be the community school where we teach Portuguese. We have to be, if we're not accepted by our community, and I don't mean just our Portuguese community, if we're not accepted by the community that we live in, then the fight it's not worth fighting for, because you need to have everybody's support. It doesn't have to be just the Portuguese people. But once you work with other organizations, and once you create partnerships, your school, your Portuguese school is really going to flourish. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it.
Indeed. So you feel that the biggest challenge right now, in order to have your students develop even further in Portuguese after those years, is that junior high, that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, because they're missing, basically, if they get to, whether it be in New Bedford, if they go to Fall River, whenever they get to high school, that there's a Portuguese program, they're missed out on the languages for 3 years, and that's a big difference in a child's life.
Absolutely. There's a huge gap there. Maybe Shelley can fill it, but I think so. I used to think that maybe they're, how do we grab those students? What do we do with them? I'm not in the public schools, but what can we do? How can we work with it? Because the public schools support us. So we're partners with New Bedford Public Schools, Dartmouth Public Schools. I'm very lucky. But what else can we do with the public schools, especially the middle schools, that we can have an awakening on these kids? Like, you did so much. Don't wait until you get to high school. So I actually thought there's got to be some kind of ethnic studies program or something like that, where we can study. In my case, would be New Bedford, what our Portuguese did in New Bedford, so they can be proud of where, families, parents, they can do a study on their family, where their family came from, what they contributed to New Bedford. Because pride is really, really important when it comes to Portuguese. And there's a lot of kids, even adults, my Portuguese is not perfect. My Portuguese, I learned my Portuguese, I was 12 years old when I got here. My Portuguese is from going on vacation to Portugal. Came June, my parents shipped me off to Portugal until September. And thank God they did. But just the fact, when the Portuguese doesn't have to be perfect, just celebrate the fact that they're out there willing to take a shot. I never ever even the adults sometimes, they say things that I know it's not proper. I celebrate that. They speak in Portuguese. I think that's so important. I mean, we'll correct the grammar later. That doesn't matter right now. And they like that. I tell them how wonderful it is, even the little ones. Always praise them, always celebrate accomplishments, no matter how little they are, because then the pride is in there, and then they're not scared to back off, because teenagers back off really quick. And they don't like to be, picked on, or maybe not that we ever would. So I think it's really, really important. But yeah, then there's that little gap there that I don't know. We got to figure out a way.
Indeed.
Close the gap.
That is an issue that I think is on both coasts, because even the schools, the community schools here that are different than yours, obviously, that just have a couple hours a week. But even then, you see here in Tulare, you see here, I'm sure, Georgia Center, you see in the Bay Area, when the kids get to like that 6th grade, sixth, seventh, and eighth, there's a big drop. And all of a sudden, if you've had in a community school 12 kids that were in the fourth grade, in the fifth grade, it's already, five. And then in the seventh grade, sixth and seventh, hardly any. So they have that aspect, that those 3 years that they have very little contact with the language. That's a challenge that we should address, indeed. Belina, a little bit about some challenges and that you're facing with at Tulare Union High School, and of course a little bit about your student composition, which I think is not as drastic as Luigi is, with only 10 students who are taking Portuguese, but more and more, I'm sure there's a bigger interest from the Hispanic community.
Most of our students are the Hispanic students. We do have a lot of Portuguese descendants. We have a lot of Portuguese students, and even some that can speak some of the language, or at least understand a lot of the language. Our biggest challenge this year is the pandemic. We've lost a lot of students to the core classes because during the pandemic, they didn't do well, and so they have to repeat a lot of the core classes, or they've double blocked them. And so the Portuguese classes are the ones that are suffering. In the years I've been teaching, this is the lowest enrollment that we've had. And this year I have a class of Portuguese 3, 4, and 5, which has been extremely difficult for me to be able to advance the honors classes and maintain the rigor for Portuguese 3. So I am trying to bring in what 4 would be learning at a level of 3 to be able to teach all 3 of them and keep them where they should be. I'm hoping that next year our enrollment numbers are up. We have so many Portuguese people in our community, and many choose to take Spanish, and I can understand for employment opportunities. But we also hear later, in their later years, in their college years, and later on, that they regret those spots. And it's so important for them to know that now's the time to learn those things, but getting it out there is a little bit difficult. Getting those students wrangled in and doing all those fun activities and the things that they enjoy to keep them motivated and to keep them learning is every year is getting a little bit harder. At Tulare this year, we have for the Portuguese 4, the advanced honors class, we do have it in all 3 high schools. And so we're teaching also the folklore in all 3 high schools. And this weekend, we're going to do a joint effort of dancing together. So that's why I was late. We were practicing, we were bringing the schools together and practicing together. And that was so rewarding to see them with that joy, dancing and interacting with each other to learn, to share with the community. It was really a good feeling, really rewarding to feel that they are finally enjoying that.
Indeed. Yeah, COVID has hit, but things are looking better, hopefully. And in some areas of the country, of course, better than others. But I think that by next school year, things will be back to a new norm anyway, or a normality of some sense. We just have about another 20 minutes or so, but I wanted to talk. So we talked a little bit about challenges. We talked a little bit about the composition of each individual program, school. One of the things that we actually touched a little bit on this yesterday in the panel that Leslie was nice enough to join us. Well, I kind of pulled her into it, but she agreed. And it is the responsibility that Portugal has. So, Portugal is a country of immigrants, whether it's whether the powers at be agree with it or not. We're talking about over 5 million people that live outside of Portugal. If you talk about immigrants in first generation, we're not talking about second, thirds, and fourths. And we know that in our community, those folks still want to be Portuguese, even though it was their grandfather or their grandmother, or it was their great grandparents or even great great grandparents that immigrated, they still have that relationship. And so, but if we talk about immigrants, first generation, we're talking about 5 million people. If we actually add probably second and third generation, especially in parts like the United States and other countries, we're going to be going into probably 6.5 to 7 million people. So you're talking about at least half of the population that lives, that identifies as being Portuguese, that doesn't live in the country. And actually, the Portuguese Constitution has a line in it where it says that all of the kids, all of the children of immigrants have the right to learn Portuguese independently where they're at. And so whether they're in Massachusetts, California, Brazil, or in that case, it would be Portuguese, but Venezuela, they have, it is a constitutional right in Portugal that the children of immigrants have the right to learn the language. And in all my dealings with the Portuguese government throughout the years, we've always brought that point up, but it doesn't seem to be the investment that we all would like to see. And of course, all of you that are in public schools, other than Leslie, your salaries and everything else comes from the public institutions. But we have the same thing with Spanish in other areas where the Instituto Cervantes actually spends a gazillion dollars, in promoting Spanish. And it's something that they probably would not need to spend, especially in California, because we have such a large Hispanic population. But the Instituto Cervantes still does. So my question to you is, what are there any connections, any help that, and especially at the community schools, that you get from Portugal, and what would you like to see that maybe part of the Blues of American Education Foundation conference, as we did with yesterday's panels and today as well? We're taking notes, and we hope to, and we will elaborate a report to send to Portugal, where we listen to community leaders, educators, and come up with some suggestions that we would like to see to better this relationship. So my first question is in that realm. What would you like to see? And I'll start with Leslie this time, because she had some ideas last night's panel. What would you like to see, Leslie, a little bit more from the Portuguese government in community schools, and in community schools that do exactly what you do? Or are they doing all that you think that they should do?
No, I do not think that they're doing all that I think they should do. Maybe they think they are, and maybe they can't, I don't know. But I don't think that they invest enough in our schools. I think they don't invest in our efforts to promote. I mean, here we are. Here we were last night, and what do? We're in and day out promoting our culture, promoting our language. And I feel a lot of times that we're on our own. I feel sometimes I'm on my own. I mean, there are things that they do, like Instituto Calmante, of course, gives us the books. But I'll give you an example. I'm lucky that I had a great Portuguese counselor that she just left, that made me aware of possibility of a program for the summer, which would have been sponsored by Ministério dos Estrangeiros, the DGACP. So I applied for some funds to start a cultural program, because what I wanted to do, I thought, what's the best way for me to get my enrollment up and to get kids, and how do I trick kids to come to the school? So how about a program? I'll call our summer cultural program. But yes, we're there to teach about the Portuguese language, about the Portuguese language and culture. So they gave me some funds. They did. I started the program, I think in 2019, and it's been growing ever since. And this summer, they just went by. They gave me funds again. So the program now, it was able to increase enrollment. The goal of the program, the objective is that so the students after enroll in September. But I didn't have enough funds. I mean, it's a lot of kids to give breakfast, to give lunch to. You can't have 70 kids and with $5,000, you can't feed 80 kids. So I went to the state after the program already started. I talked to someone from the state of Massachusetts, and they supported the program 5 times more. So here, and that, as happy as I was, it's the state of Massachusetts that's supporting my Portuguese, English, and cultural program. Portugal is helping me, of course, but the biggest support is coming from right here, from my backyard. So that's, even though that's great and I appreciate it, it should have been the other way around. So there's got to be, even maybe with that gap that we were talking about, there's got to be a way that they, that they can help us. If we had more financial support, like I said yesterday, there's so much more that we can do. And sometimes I want to do a lot more, but I can't. We're financially strapped in a way too. I'm lucky. I have a good school. I have someone that believes. I have that one person, which is the person that bought the building where the school is, because he believes in education. He believes there's no economic development without education. And he's Portuguese and he helps, but not everybody has someone like that. So that's important. But what he does for us, what the state does for us, I think that Portugal could also do the same thing, because what we're doing is we're promoting them. And it's not just promoting language and culture. We also promote Portugal.
Sure.
I promote kids going there. I promote student exchange programs. I mean, Shelley's participated in that too, where we take kids to the Azores. And then the kids from the Azores come here. Our kids went to Parlamento Jovens. So we're constantly promoting them. And I feel that it's not returned as much as it could be. We could do a lot more.
So a bigger investment, because indeed these are future tourists and future exchange programs that can be done, and future engineers and doctors and lawyers that will be promoting Portugal.
And future students to the university, they're also constantly too, oh, come abroad. Well, okay, yeah, we want to send our students there, but we need a little gas here in the engine, to get these students really interested in going. They're not just going to wake up for 4 years later and say, oh, let me go to Portugal,
Sure. Sure. Yeah, there's got to be the groundwork laid. Indeed. Shelley, what would you like to see a little bit more? I mean, you're in the public school, and of course, the public school has responsibility towards the students. But first of all, I would ask, what do you get from Portugal, if anything, and what would you like to see?
Well, at the public school, I don't think we directly deal with Portugal. We don't get much. I don't really think we get much.
Sure.
A few years ago, we did do a trip to Portugal, and I know that they helped us out a lot. They set up a lot of tours for us and all of that, but that was one select group of students, not for the entire program as a whole. A lot of times my teachers struggle with finding resources. So we have the textbooks, we have those things, but a lot of that is already outdated. And at a public school, we can't just keep purchasing new books. So we've actually just not used any books for the last 4 or 5 years. We haven't been using any books at all. And it's been just teacher created, teacher developed, and we go online and look at a lot of the Spanish resources and kind of adapt that and create our own. So a lot of our materials are all teacher directed, teacher made, teacher created. And so resources, I think, would be the biggest piece we need. The books they just don't cut it for us. And especially now with all the technology, especially with the pandemic, we've done everything online. Everything is created electronically. So none of those textbooks are electronic. So, and then to get those books electronically, it's call this person and then call this person and then get this, and then you have to get this code. And it's just an ongoing battle. So we just gave up on that and we just create everything ourselves. So it's been a burden on teachers. They're getting burnt out with creating resources for themselves and for their students.
Indeed, that's a very good point. Resources, and especially resources connected to the North America continent, because a lot of my experience when I was teaching at the high school, and it's the same thing at the university, is a lot of the resources are very European based, and we have a different way of looking at things. And so and there's not a, for example, the resources should have entailed the Portuguese American experience. Talk about the whalers and talk about, the Portuguese American experience in the gold rush in California, the whaling in New Bedford and throughout Massachusetts. So indeed, that is one of the issues, is having resources that can be easily adaptable to us, to our reality of our students here. That's a very good point. And I noted that more resources that are in line with the realistic experience of the Portuguese in America. Michelle, what would you like to see from Portugal? I know that the school's George Sena gets the books, obviously, as Leslie said, her school does also. But any other things that you would like to see, including exchange programs? I think what Shelley mentioned and Leslie are very important. I think we talked about that last night in a different context. Getting students over to Portugal is a must if we want to build successful programs.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And kind of echoing what Shelley said and what you said, Denise, and building upon it, it would be nice because there is a disconnect between the way that we teach the language here and the books that they create for us. And Bon Dia is outdated, and there's other books that are maybe a little too advanced. So it would be nice if we would actually work with the, I don't know if it's the publishers or whoever it is there, and collaborate to create a book that is usable here, and curriculum that we could use here, because although we have done a lot with building the Portuguese language and instruction here, it would be nice to have a comprehensive curriculum that we would be able to use for Portuguese language learning.
Indeed. And do you feel that the books that you're given for George Sena, for example, because those are given, and those are the books that you say that sometimes they're not adaptable to our reality here, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, they're too advanced.
Yeah.
Some of the books are children's books, but there's words in there that I don't even know. And that would be also a good thing too, not just looking at what we could do for the students to give them the experience of going to Portugal, but also the teachers. How could the teachers be supported to develop their language?
Indeed. And that's something actually that we're working on at Fresno State right now with Portuguese oral history. We're creating with our linguistics department, based on oral histories that were collected in California, some lessons that can be used in a classroom where you use the fables that were told by grandparents. It was a collection done by Professor Manuel Costa Fontes many years ago in the 1970s. So people that were your grandparents, that he collected these from immigrants of the 1970s throughout the entire state of California. And he has a collection of these, and we're going to take some of these and develop lessons along with our linguistic graduate students that we can use, and there'll be resources that are available to all teachers, and they will be online. But we do have actually Professor Duarte Silva, retired from Stanford, attending the webinar, and he certainly can maybe work with all of us at a national campaign. That would be, I think, interesting if we could get some funding to create an updated version of a Bon Dia that I agree totally with you. It's been outdated for many years. It was out there when I was teaching in high school, so I can only imagine now. But to create, and maybe as Shelley mentioned, go completely online. Why even print a book? Why not have it completely online for the students? So maybe we can entice Professor Duarte Silva to get us some funding and get some funding from Portugal. But it's hard. It's very hard. Anyway, Belina, your situation. What would you like to see better from Portugal, or are you getting all you need?
Well, like Michelle was saying, and Shelley, I echo their thoughts as well. Some of the books are too advanced, and some of the books are too childish. The students can't make connections to the stories that are in the children's books. And so what we do is create our own stories so that we're talking about things that are happening in our own community, to have them relate to that, to make a connection so that they're interested in what they're saying, and so they can use that to actually speak in class, to use the language in class. So how would you normally speak to your friends, and what would you speak about? We have social media, there's sports and things like that. So that's something, as Michelle was saying, that collaboration between the publishers and the teachers here, so that we're creating something that's usable and that the students can connect to.
Indeed. Luis, your thoughts on that as well? I know that, of course, you use a multitude of, probably like Shelley and Beline and Michelle use a lot. We rob from the Spanish and the French, and and we create our own stuff. That's what we've all been doing for years. But but there's such updates that that I think if we ever do something, it has to be us doing it, and with Leslie's idea, or which is have Portugal fund it. I mean, Portugal has a responsibility to fund it, and with maybe some other funding as well. But that is the respect that we talked about yesterday, Leslie. The respect that Portugal needs to kind of have for its communities. Trust us. We're all language professionals. We can create a book that is good for our communities, and that or a series of books that will go there. We just need you to fund it, and don't send us to specialists. We have Duarte Silva and others in the community that are specialists in language teaching. Luis, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I you said it. I mean, we had people that made Bom Dia. That book was used for many years. It comes from New Bedford, right? And we have people there also on the East Coast that put together Ponto de Encontro, which is a little bit higher level book. It's a little difficult for high school, but for the higher level, I still use a lot from that book. And for the lower levels, I still use a lot of the Bon Dia stuff. But you're right, we pirate a lot of stuff from the Spanish classes and whatever we can get. I use a lot of online materials. Not sure that an online only source would be a good idea, because during COVID we did the online thing and we lost a lot of students. Not just in Portuguese, but in Spanish, in math, and science. So I'm not sure. Everybody used to say, "Oh, online is the way to go," and clearly that I'm not sure that's a reality. But and I agree with your panelists like Michelle and Belina, like the books that sometimes we get from Instituto Camões, right? We always get an email from Duarte Pinheiro, "Hey, can I get you any books?" And I think like the first year I took some books, but after that you start to see that the books really don't align with our curriculum, and they're just not appropriate for what we're teaching. They're like books for real youngsters, but the vocab is too difficult for beginning students, for English language or for second language learners. So, when I worked at Portsmouth, I worked at Portsmouth High for a few years, and the department chair over there was Mrs. Almeida Loro. And she mentioned one day, she was Paulita's aunt, okay? And she said, "Oh, I was really thinking about speaking to Paulita and having him come here and building up the program, talking up Portuguese, vender a nossa sardinha, não é? Like, and I think what you said earlier would be key. I mean, that's something that the Portuguese government can help with, right? And like they can pay some stars to come and go to Hillmar, come to San Jose, and do an appearance at the high school or some of the local clubs, and try to build it up, try to build it up. And of course, I mean, it doesn't matter how much they build it up. we still wouldn't be able to have any more classes if I'm the only guy in San Jose teaching Portuguese, you know.
Sure. Sure.
We need another teacher even at the middle school. It would be great to have another one at the middle school. So we're really hard up for another teacher, you know. We're trying to get our students to, you know, some of our better students, hey, you know, think about taking Portuguese. And some of them are like, oh, maybe I'll minor at San Jose State, you know, or maybe I'll take Portuguese at Berkeley, you know. But I want more of a commitment from them, you know. I want like, yes, I'm going to take your place in a couple of years. And you're
couple of years, you got another 25, but you're too young to retire. Indeed, so that is the lack of teachers is also something that I don't know if the East Coast has, but we have here. Shelley's saying yes, but we have here in the West Coast, and actually, FYI, we're developing a program again at the university where I work at to actually train Spanish language teachers to teach Portuguese, because that's the way out for us. I mean, we have an abundance of Spanish language teachers. We have some after they have taken Portuguese courses, and they're very good at it. They can communicate in both languages pretty well. And so we're again with Duarte Silva. Duarte is committed to a lot of stuff. Is taking with the school districts, because one of the issues is to have more schools teaching Portuguese. And here in California, and I'm sure the East Coast would like that too. But in order to do that, we have to have teachers. And most school districts are not going to hire a teacher to teach full-time Portuguese when they only have maybe 30 students signed up. So what is he or she going to teach? And so we basically believe that if they're teaching already Spanish and they can start a Portuguese program, so if the school districts will commit to that, we can offer them language classes online. And then the idea would be for them to spend a summer in Portugal and really immerse into the language and the culture, come back and start teaching Portuguese. That is, but that's something that, as Leslie pointed out, you know, we're trying to get funding from the U.S., but why wouldn't Portugal fund that? Why wouldn't Portugal fund this? You know, that is the biggest thing. A little bit, we talked about Luis has a international baccalaureate program, and I know the rest of you. Leslie said that Discovery is a Newell testing center. So let's talk just a little bit about Newell. It's very controversial. I've added some ashes to the fire, or better yet, fire to the ashes, or whatever. And because Newell hasn't been. It's not an AP class. Obviously, it's not an AP test. And it has some issues as far as getting accepted by certain universities, including the California State University system, where we have 500,000 students. Shelley, do you offer Newell at your school, and how has that been accepted by the students, and what's your plan on that?
We have not done Newell. Last year was the first year that we did the CL by literacy. We used the STAMP assessment for that, but we did not do the Newell.
Okay. Plans to do it, or not really? We don't know.
Right now, probably not, especially this year. We're going to focus on getting our students prepared for the CL by literacy, but it is something to look forward to in the future. I know some other schools have done it before, so we are looking into it. We just haven't pursued it yet.
Indeed. Michelle, I think the Hillmar is doing the Newell, correct? And how has the students fared with that?
So this is my second year here. I know in the past, several students have passed the Newell. Last year I had 4 students take it, and all 4 passed. So yeah, they're doing pretty well. And then several of my students that I have now are looking forward to doing the Newell as well as the CL by literacy.
Fantastic. One of the things that I believe that Newell should have, and I'll ask Belina that as well, is more training for the teachers. I think it's kind of teachers need to be trained. I mean, we have, I'm sure Shelley knows in her school, and all of you, that we have, and Luis with his international baccalaureate, there's training for teachers. You know, our AP Spanish teachers go to a training every year for a week, not just, you know, something once in a while. So, Belina, how is Newell there? I know Tulare, I believe it's going to be a requirement for students for the seal of biliteracy, or around that, or very highly encouraged. Let's put it that way. And so, how do you feel about what has been the history in the last couple of years, and what has been the training?
Well, we've had very little training on the Newell. They trained us on how to access the program or access the test for the students, but not how to get the student to the point where they're comfortable taking that test. Although we've had some good luck the last 2 years, my students have taken the test, and I had one not pass last year and one not pass this year. Last year I had 15 students, and this year I believe it was 14 students. So they did do really well. When we requested some training from Newell, they told us that they didn't teach to the test, that we needed to just continue to teach our students the language, the reading, the writing, the speaking, the listening, and that's how they were going to pass the test. I think that we do need some training. What particular things do they look for, and what conversations do we need to focus on so that our students are able to understand what they're looking for. This year, I was one of the participants in grading the test. So I graded the speaking portion, and I graded the writing portion. And it was very interesting that what they're looking for is that they're able to have some kind of communication. It's not necessarily grammar based, and it doesn't even, how do I put this? It's almost like you're a 3-year-old with throwing words out at your mom and she knows exactly what you're talking about. So I don't know if it was because of the pandemic that it was a little easier to pass that test, or if this is what they do. This is my first year grading, but I grade pretty hard. So if it didn't make sense, and as I was reading the, if their writing or their speaking portion didn't answer that prompt, I didn't give them the credit that Newell would have given them, because they were having a conversation regardless of what the prompt was. And many of the students, prompted by their teachers, I believe, were just speaking. So they didn't understand what the prompt was, but they were speaking in Portuguese. So it's something that was just wrote.
Interesting, very interesting. Leslie, you, of course, administer the test, and so I'm sure you had some of your students. Well, I don't know if you had any of your students because you have lower levels, but how is that working for you?
So we do both. We're a test center, so I actually have students. We were the first test center there, so we had students from the Catholic high schools. So I would just administer the test. But now our students actually take the test. I've been lucky. I don't know if you graded the test, but the student that we had that took the test this year got a 5. One from last year got a 5, which you know is the highest grade. So that's really great. But these are students that have been at our school since grade 1. So these students are already. So the one that got a 5 this year, she just graduated 9th grade. So she was at the school for 9 years. It's those students that do complete the program that are getting 5s. Mm-hmm. So you know, they obviously they're doing really well, but they've been with us all along. So I do both. Our students take the test, and then we have students that I don't know that come in and take the test, and all we do is supervise. This year, you're right, it was a little different because they took it from home. It was online. Before the pandemic, they come to the school, and there's certain regulations that we have to have technology-wise, as you know. So we just we supervise the test. But I've been lucky, but I'm a very small school. I'm not a public school, so.
Indeed, and they've had such long, 7 or 8 years of the language. Obviously, they're going to do well. Hopefully, and they will. Obviously,
hopefully, yes.
Like that. Yeah. But indeed, it is. The Newell is very important because we need some kind, other than the international baccalaureate. So we need some kind of a state test and that's why for years I pushed an AP test in Portuguese, as Shelley mentioned right from the beginning, because if we, as long as we don't have an AP test, we're kind of the poor cousins to the Spanish. And, because we don't have a test, we don't have, the students don't get the credits for school, and until also Newell is recognized by all places such as the AP, it's kind of a hit and miss. You can't tell a student, well, take the test and you'll get 3 units, at the college level. And then the college he or she applies and says, no, we don't have an agreement with it. So these things, this kind of homework has to be done, because Luis, you're of course not doing the Newell because of the international baccalaureate, correct? And that's what you've chosen. That's what you're going to be continuing with.
Right. Our school is committed to sticking to the International Baccalaureate diploma and offering those IB courses. And we're going to stick to that. Even I know that there is another test from Portugal that the students are encouraged to take. I don't know what the name of it is, but we don't even, I can't, it's too much. We work towards that test like the whole year, we practice a lot of speaking, a lot of prompts, the students have to record themselves, they have to record themselves in conversation and do speak about the prompts and not just throw, wild words at it to get a passing grade. It has to be a comprehensible conversation. The same thing with the writing and the reading and the listening portion. So we're just totally committed to the IB thing,
Indeed, that's been it's been the history of San Jose, correct? It's one of the very few IB in Portuguese in the nation.
It really has,
yeah, indeed. Well, we're going to end. Thank you so much. We took a little bit over an hour, but I'd like to just make a quick go around again. And so with this new post-pandemic era, what are some of the projects that you have within your own schools that you're looking forward to doing once we are away from the pandemic? So this is kind of a transition year, it seems like. But let's look at the fall of 2022 and see what are some of the projects that you'd like to see happen with Portuguese at your school. And in your thoughts, can we move towards something that we actually talked about yesterday in another panel, which is, can we move towards having a little bit more? Do you feel it would be important as a Portuguese language teacher, wherever you're teaching, to have more contact with other Portuguese language teachers, to have a better communication with language teachers in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, California, in Utah, where there's a very strong Portuguese program, in Georgia and some other states? So twofold question. First of all, what are you looking to accomplish, and what are you looking forward after this pandemic within your Portuguese language program? And second, how important is it to have a little bit better contact, or do we work well in isolation? Because that's what we've all been doing for such a long time. I'll start with Shelley. It's kind of a tradition to start with Shelley.
So in the past, you just mentioned reaching out to other schools. So in the past, we've done pen pals with other schools in our area. So our teachers will reach out to teachers in other school districts, and we will share students, and they'll do letters to each other through email, or they'll do like hard copy letters. So in the past we did hard copies. This year we're going to do the email because of COVID, and they've done Zoom meetings. So it's been pretty successful. The students speak all in Portuguese, and then they actually build a relationship with those students as well. So that's been very successful. So I'm hoping to bring that back. And then next year, hopefully we can have more of an in-person gathering. So the past couple of years we would do the letters, and then we would have like an end of the year celebration where we actually meet in person and have a gathering, and we share our Portuguese language all together with other school districts. So it worked out really well in the past. So I'm hoping to bring that back.
And that's with other school districts in the area of Massachusetts, right? Okay, that's a wonderful program. Michelle?
Okay, so I have students who have been looking forward to learning how to dance, and last year we couldn't do that. This year we're still unsure if the Portuguese Immigrant Night is coming back, if we're going to do it in person or depending on what happens. So I'm looking forward to that and teaching them how to do some different Portuguese dances and bringing in more of that culture.
Mm.
The second part, the contact with other schools. I would love to have more connection with the local schools and even with the East Coast, being able to share ideas and maybe some like curriculum, different things that we've come up with, what's worked with our students and those kinds.
Indeed. That's a great idea. Maybe we can again commit Professor Duarte Silva to work with us on that. He's already got a big list. Leslie, so looking forward to post-pandemic. What are some of your projects? A lot of creativity. I know that brain of yours is always creating. It must be the Pico and Gracioso part of the Azores. So and also contacts with other community schools, although yours is but contacts in general with other people who teach Portuguese.
Yeah, it's a little different with my little kids because my students are the community kids from the other schools. So, they're already there. But we're looking for finally our first wine tasting. That's for the adults coming up in November. We have canceled our last, so they have a Halloween party at the building. So we have a Halloween party for the kids, which is going to be great. They're very excited about that. We have our wine tasting. What I did start this year is I have about 12 teachers and 4 aides. So we have common planning. Tomorrow is our first one. So we're going to be planning a Christmas concert. Obviously, they're going to be singing Portuguese Christmas carols. We have a breakfast with Santa. And that really is, even though, it's a breakfast with Santa, you get tea, pancakes, but that's really a time where the teachers and the kids showcase what they have learned. And of course, all of us, the grandparents come and see the kids sing. So we're looking forward to that. And the older kids, I'm very excited. We're going to give it another try to go over to Portugal and represent USA in the Parlamento Jovens. I think that just came out. So we're going to compete for that with there's 3 9th graders. We're going to do that. And I'm starting to work on the summer camp for next year. And I think that's it. One thing at a time.
Já tens muita coisa, as we say in Portuguese. That's great. Lots of creativity. Belina, what are you looking forward to post-pandemic? Of course, bringing back the dancing a little bit more full-blown, and also the contact with other teachers. What do you feel about that?
Well,
And projects for post-pandemic.
Bringing back, as you know, you started the MVPA award so we can celebrate our students. The last 2 years, 2019, we did a drive-through celebration and awarded them their medals for taking the 4 years of Portuguese and doing so well. And then last year, each of our schools did a small celebration in our classrooms, but we did celebrate our students and all the hard work and their commitment to the Portuguese program. We were not able to dance, and this year we are already starting to dance. As I said, that's where I was. And on Saturday night, we will be dancing for the community at the Festa de Fatima here in Tulare. We're also looking forward to having our day at the Portuguese Hall, where we take the students from all 3 schools and we bring in a keynote speaker. We have a cultural activity. We bring in food, and we also teach them some of the dances that the older kids are doing. So that's a full day, but because of the pandemic for the last 2 years, we haven't been able to do that. And that's something we look forward to. We also bring in music, and they get to dance Portuguese music for about an hour and a half and try all of the normal Portuguese dancing that people do at the celebrations, which is kind of fun to watch. Some of our field trips, like taking them to Fresno State and learning about the Portuguese program, taking them to a bakery or another Portuguese event. So all of the field trips were canceled, and I'm kind of looking forward to bringing that stuff back and getting them excited about learning so that they're involved a little bit in what's happening, and then they find that want that we want them to have.
Indeed. Luis, what are we looking forward to this post-pandemic? And you can't increase the program anymore, or else you need another teacher, but at least to keep them all excited.
We're trying. Parlamento dos Jovens, I have a couple of students who are very interested, so they're going to be joining as well. One is working on an app to fight social injustices, so and it's in Portuguese, so I'm super excited about that.
Wow.
Also, Portuguese Immigrant Week in March is a big deal for us. We always try to bring some of the local artists to our class as guest speakers. You know, we look up a little bit of the history and what some of these people do out there in the community and listen to some Portuguese music and so on. So that's always a fun week, a couple of weeks. And one of the things that I really love to do, and it's kind of become a thing now, for my first year of Portuguese, the unit on food is a great opportunity for us to go to just walk over to Casa do Benfica, a few blocks away, and they have to order food in Portuguese, and that's their test. If you order in Portuguese, you pass the unit. You don't order in Portuguese, don't bother coming, you know.
Indeed.
But they all do really well, and it's
I'm sure.
fun. And I'd really like to, you know, like connect with maybe some teachers in the East Coast, you know, and have the students do some emails or I don't know, start off with some emails. Just
Sure, emails, and
language,
then
you know, just
and with Zoom we can go into other opportunities. Indeed. Well, thank you all very, very much. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for this last hour and a half. I'm going to end it actually by reading you what you probably have seen on the chat from Professor Duarte Silva, because it is the best way to end it. What an insightful panel of extraordinary educators. I second that. If we could just clone them, but since we cannot, we need to create many, many more in their image. So my gratitude, as with Duarte and everyone else, to all of these exceptional panelists. Thank you all so much. Please continue with your efforts. The Portuguese language needs you, and the Portuguese government and the Portuguese nation needs you, even though the government sometimes doesn't know that they need you. But they do need you. They do need to have the best ambassadors for the Portuguese culture in the United States, is in the language teaching, because that's how we bring not only those who are Portuguese, but like in Luis's case, you know, 90%, or actually more, a little bit more than that, 92% of students who every year, over 100 students in San Jose, are learning about Portugal and the Portuguese American experience, and they would not learn it anywhere else if it wasn't in the classroom. So thank you all for what you do. Have a good evening. Thank you so much for your time, and take care, please. Muito boa noite. Boa noite a todos. Todos e todas.